The world seems to be happening online. It's where we go to buy gifts and groceries, to manage our bank accounts and pay back loans, to connect with old friends and send our work messages. If you use the web for any of these purposes, you are a potential target to cybercriminals. Cybercrime is any crime conducted online with computer technology. On TVs and movies, these crimes are usually seen as something a complex hacker is responsible for on the dark web. But it can happen to any of us at any moment. It's a reality of the modern world, and one that many of us will find to be nearly impossible to fully protect ourselves from. In fact, experts say you probably already have felt the effects of a cybercrime.
Obviously, this is something that affects everybody, something that your email, all sorts of things, there's constantly different attacks coming in, there's constantly an awareness of what's going on. I think everyone has received the email scams of different stripes. I'm no different in that respect.
That's Jonathan Lusthaus, director of the Human Cybercriminal Project at the University of Oxford and author of Industry of Anonymity: Inside the Business of Cybercrime. He said cybercrime is not to be confused with computer hacking.
Hacking and cybercrime are actually two different concepts. Hacking can be something that actually is used for positive purposes. It's really finding an unconventional solution to a problem. And so we find people from the 1950s onwards, actually probably throughout history, but in relation to computer hacking, we find people from the 1950s onwards who get very interested in sort of playing around with these new technologies. And at this time, we're talking a lot about students and computer scientists in places like MIT. Over time, things change a little bit. And I think in terms of trying to understand the history of cybercrime itself and profit-driven cybercrime, which is what I'm primarily interested in, what we're looking at there is really the 1990s onwards, because that's the point at which we as society start to put things of value online. So we start to, be using credit cards more commonly. We start to have online banking, we start to have e-commerce, we start to have all these sorts of opportunities. And by creating those targets and putting a lot of data online, we see actually a rise at that point in cybercrime becoming an issue where people start to see they can make money out of this.
So really, cybercrime is nothing new. It's just plain old theft, fraud, and extortion, but carried out on the internet. Lusthaus says the turning point in cybercrime came in 2001 when a group of cybercriminals launched a website called Carter Planet.
And what that was famous for was the trade in stolen credit card data. And so this really looked like a kind of eBay for cybercriminals. So it was a website where people could go online, where they could trade, they could get other people who had different skill sets to them, they could buy data, and they began to form sort of operational groupings around this broader marketplace. And for me, that was a very key moment because it became really a symbol of this shift towards sort of professionalization, but also it became really important in terms of the development of the network that followed the sort of group of people who became very, very skilled at cybercrime and then started to branch out into a whole range of different areas.
One of the most notorious Carters was a Russian national by the name of Roman Selezniev.
He's a very, very interesting character because in one way he's quite representative of the broader trends and the kind of picture that we're seeing him here. He's kind of an entrepreneur. He's of Russian background. He's picked up overseas traveling on holidays with his family. He's arrested. But he's also the son of a Russian politician. And so you can see the kind of background that's important for certain people involved in this industry and the type of sort of upbringing that they have and the sort of protection that they might have that allows them to carry out this type of criminal activity.
But unlike traditional crime, where criminals know one another and form alliances, there is one key element that makes cybercrime different. And that's the anonymity that only the internet can provide.
Anonymity is obviously extremely important, and it's in some sense the heart of cybercrime, because really that's what allows people to operate quite brazenly, to be able to carry out various types of crime and think, well, they're probably relatively secure in terms of not getting caught. Obviously, that's not entirely true because people do get arrested. And so what you see more with cybercrime is actually a balance, where anonymity isn't everything that cybercriminals need. It only is half the story. It helps protect them, but it also prevents them from building up a reputation. It prevents them from enforcing agreements with other criminals because they don't know who they are. So it actually creates a number of challenges as well as opportunities. And so that's a very important part, I think, of understanding how cybercrime works, is seeing both sides of that anonymity equation.
So how does a cybercriminal trust an anonymous partner? Lusthaus says these online crooks have an anonymous review system that works much the same as do reviews on TripAdvisor or eBay. Criminals can rate transactions with an anonymous dealer, and in that way, cybercriminals build a certain reputation as being someone reliable to work with or not. But even though anonymity is important online, Lusthaus was surprised to find certain hotspots around the globe where cybercriminals congregate and actually know one another offline.
If we think about Eastern Europe, this is a place that's very well known for the more technical types of cybercrime. So what we're seeing here is people who are highly educated, very intelligent, and highly skilled. And these are people in former Soviet Union countries that are generally responsible for things like malware, things that are the kind of more technical aspects of this industry. But if we look at other countries around the world, we see different types of profiles. So some places like Nigeria is probably an example that's well known to a number of listeners because everyone's seen these emails. They've seen I'm the prince of whatever and I've inherited this money and I just need you to pay me this small sum. These types of things are very, very well known as coming ultimately from West Africa. And obviously others can do this, but the Nigerians developed a kind of skill hub around this, and they spread that knowledge locally amongst the community. And so what you see is these types of local flavors of cybercrime. So Romania is another example that's quite well known for fraud, and they're particularly well known for what's called online auction fraud, which is basically selling things online that don't exist. So going onto eBay, and in the old days maybe selling a car or something else of value, and the scam is very simple. You buy the car, but you don't get the car.
Lusthaus says people become cybercriminals for basically the same reasons traditional crooks do: corruption and joblessness.
Certainly corruption is very, very important, because what this does is allow cybercriminals a safer place to do business, a safer place to operate, because they don't have to worry so much about arrest. And certainly in the places where you see high concentrations of cybercriminals, what you often encounter, and what I encountered, was law enforcement agents who are either being paid off or have some other kind of relationship with cybercriminals, and sometimes politicians as well. And this provides a kind of protective umbrella that allows these people to thrive. But I think in countries where you have a lot more opportunity, so the US is an example, the UK, certain other Western countries, but if you look at other countries, and I think in Eastern Europe this is a problem, where they're producing a huge amount of talent, there's terrific universities and a great education system around STEM, but they're not providing the jobs. The private sector is not set up to take on this sort of talent and ultimately give them the opportunities that they need. So what happens is they turn to crime. They create their own business. They create their own careers.
So if cybercrime is now just another fact of life, how does the average citizen protect him or herself against it? Especially since more and more transactions are done online these days.
There are a number of things that they can do. But what I find quite interesting is that these things are quite well known. And the difficulty isn't so much as what people should be doing, but getting the average person to do them. So you can talk a lot about passwords and having, multiple passwords and distinct and complex passwords. But that's something, if you go and do a poll or survey around just average users, you'll find many people are not doing this, and it's quite a challenge. So there are things that need to be done in terms of how we get people to adopt these security practices.
Okay, good, strong passwords, sure. But Lusthaus says there's something else we can use, an even more powerful tool at our disposal. And that tool is good old-fashioned common sense.
But my main takeaway, I think, which I believe everybody can learn from in some way, is just to be cautious, is to be aware. As I mentioned earlier, there are risks out there. There is a whole sort of underground industry of people who are trying to make money from this. Not everyone is going to be a victim. I don't want to hype the threat in a kind of over-the-top way. But what we can do is be cautious. We can be aware. And so what that looks like in practice is when we receive an email, whether it's asking us to do some banking transfer or click on some link or whatever it might be, sometimes we have a sort of instant reaction that we just want to click it, we want to do it, or it might be something that's intentionally designed to scare us, and that's why we act. Sometimes the best thing is just to take a moment, step back and think, does this seem quite right? And act accordingly, because sometimes what happens is people do get defrauded in some way, and they realize actually quite soon afterwards, they think, oh, wow, that wasn't right, there's something wrong, and then they go and try to take action. But if we can prevent that from happening by thinking a little bit proactively, by thinking in advance, there are issues here I need to think about, I think that's maybe one way forward for the average person who really doesn't take a strong interest in technology or security.
Whether you're a computer geek or a techno neophyte, You can read more about cybercrime in Jonathan Lusthaus's new book, Industry of Anonymity, Inside the Business of Cybercrime, available wherever books are sold. And you can learn more about all our guests by visiting our website at viewpointsonline.net. Our writer-producer for this segment is Polly Hansen. Our production director is Jason Dickey. I'm Gary Price.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control of your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank accounts, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problem now by calling the experts at U.S. Tax Shield and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. U.S. Tax Shield offers a price protection guaranteed quote to get you protected today. U.S. Tax Shield is A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, so call now. 800-568-1647. That's 800-568-1647. U.S. Tax Shield. 800-568-1647.
What are you going to do with your old car? You can try selling it, you could junk it, or you can donate it to Heritage for the Blind. Your car will be towed away for free and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-835-1478. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats. It doesn't matter if your vehicle runs or not. It will be towed away for free, and you'll be supporting those that need help. Heritage for the Blind is a nonprofit organization that helps the visually impaired live fuller lives. Call right now to donate your car, and as a special thank you, you'll receive a free 3-day vacation voucher to over 50 locations. Call Heritage for the Blind right now. Call 1-800-835-1478. Donating is easy, and your vehicle is towed away for free. Plus, you'll get a free vacation voucher for donating. Call now, 1-800-835-1478. That's 1-800-835-1478.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Viewpoints is a production of MediaTrax Communications. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook to learn about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on iTunes. Plus, you'll always find podcasts of our segments and information about our guests at viewpointsonline.net. Join us again next week for your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.